Thank you for joining me on Essentialist Alina YouTube channel. I have been on and off healthy living principles, and my problem mainly was caused by sugar addiction. For the past 14 years of my life, I have been trying to stop eating sugar or reduce the amount of sugar I consume. I think only now I have finally found a way sticking to my habit. And I have found many other ways how we can make it easier for ourselves to stick to a healthy habit. So today I would like to share with you several tips that might help you to stick to a new habit and keep it for life. Let's begin. First, let's try to understand some of the reasons of why you might be failing to stick to a habit. The first tip to know yourself better. I would recommend writing down the reasons why you are failing to see what is that particular obstacle that you have when trying to stick to your habit. Gretchen Rubin has an article on 10 loopholes, and my favorite one is, well, I'll have it just this once, or just this once won't hurt, or I'm on a holiday, or I deserve it, things like that. So if you are using any of these loopholes, it will be helpful to identify them and to catch yourself anytime you want to use them. I will link that in the description below, so go and check this out. Another tip for knowing yourself better is to identify whether you are an abstainer or a moderator. An abstainer finds it easier to completely avoid eating a particular food item, but a moderator is capable of eating a small amount and stopping. An abstainer finds it harder to keep themselves from eating it. So if, for example, an abstainer would have a jar of ice cream, it would be hard for them to stop eating the whole jar. But a moderator is capable of restraining themselves and eating just a few spoonfuls of the ice cream, or maybe a bar of chocolate. It's easier for a moderator to stop at a few pieces than for an abstainer. So abstainers tend to cut out certain food items from their diet, whereas moderators can keep them. So if you know that you are an abstainer, like myself with refined sugar, definitely for me it's easier to abstain from the refined sugar than to moderate. Another question for knowing yourself better would be, are you an upholder, an obliger, a rebel, or a questioner? I will also leave a quiz in the description, which comes again from Gretchen Rubin, who has identified 4 different personality tendencies, and depending on which one you are, you'll find either easier to keep a certain habit or harder, or you might need certain adjustments to be able to stick to a certain habit. When you've taken the quiz, you'll be able to see which one applies to you. So the first one is the upholder. Upholders generally don't have any issues with sticking to any habit. The issue they've got with habits is mostly trying to stop a certain habit than starting a certain habit. Their motto is discipline is my freedom. If you are an obliger, the general advice would be to get some accountability when trying to stick to a new habit or a healthy lifestyle. The recommendation is to tell someone that you are starting this new habit or you're trying to stick to a healthy lifestyle and ask them to help you. Also, you can ask them to do something together so that you keep each other accountable. You can also join a Facebook group. If there's no Facebook group for your particular interest, then you can start your own. For a questioner, it's important to have a list of reasons on why they should adopt a certain healthy habit. The general recommendation for them is to do a research, maybe to read a book on a subject that they are interested in. Maybe it's nutrition or sleep or exercise, to have their own reasons on why they should adopt this lifestyle. I am a questioner myself, bordering with upholder. So I have some upholder tendencies and the questioner tendencies. And every time something would come up, like for example, exercise, you would think that, well, you don't really need to exercise if you don't want to lose weight, which is not true. And upon finding that exercise stimulates bowel movement, exercise is good for feel good hormones, for your mental health. It's good to keep your bones strong so that when you age you are not prone to fractures, etc. That all convinced me that I need exercise regardless of whether I want to lose weight or not. And on the screen I give a list of my personal reasons for cutting out sugar. If you are a rebel, which is not a derogatory term by any means, it just helps to identify someone who, depending on whether they want to or not, might resist internal and external expectations of themselves. So that's why they are called a rebel, because they literally do what they want to do and they don't do anything they don't want to do. And for rebel, it is easier if they can identify with their new habit. For example, if they decide that they want to run, it's better for them to identify as a runner. I am a runner, or I am a vegan, or I don't drink. So this is just part of their personality. This is something that they don't do or they do, and it makes it easier for them to then stick to a certain habit rather than feeling that there is some kind of an external pressure for them to do that particular thing or not to do it. Also, it's easier for them to make a change in their lifestyle if they do some form of a challenge, maybe a 30-day challenge or 75 hard, even gamifying certain things like doing sort of a healthy draw, which I'm going to talk about later in the video. So moving to the next reason why you are not able to stick to a healthy lifestyle, that could be because you do not have a solid plan in place for when a craving or a temptation might kick in. What happens if somebody in a gathering offers you a cake? What happens if you've decided to go to bed late and your partner offers to watch a movie? What do you do then? You have to be prepared for when that happens. For times when a temptation kicks, maybe you are craving a carbohydrate, I recommend that you have a list of things on hand that you can eat when that carb craving hits. Also remember that things like brown rice, potato, sweet potato, yams, cassava, etc. They are all also carbohydrates, which we oftentimes forget about. And during those times of the month when we crave more carbohydrates, we should remember to incorporate the healthy types of carbohydrates. Next, it is easier to avoid temptation than to resist it. So if you think about an alcoholic who needs to avoid pubs, in the same way a sugarholic needs to avoid bakeries, ice cream parlors, dessert and waffle places, etc. And of course, not to keep these things around your house. If you find yourself in a situation where you cannot avoid that temptation, you have done what you could and you still end up being offered something that you're not allowed to eat, but it's very tempting for you to have it because everybody else is having it, then I suggest that you have a go-to answer that you give to everyone who offers you something you can't have. For example, somebody offers you a cake and you see if it looks delicious, then you say, okay, let me just put on my acting face. Wow, this looks so delicious. This looks so good. Oh wow, I'm sure it tastes amazing. I have made a decision not to have any sugar, any refined sugar, and can't make any exceptions. I am an abstainer when it comes to these things. I have to practice it a bit more. But you get what I'm saying. If you are being invited to a tempting place, you can always suggest an alternative. For example, instead of going to a cafe which has a lot of maybe tempting bakery items there, you can go to a place that's got a lot of good savory options, or you can suggest to go for a walk instead of a cafe. Maybe have even your go-to place, which you always suggest. And people are quite open to suggestions because often it is somewhat a burden to choose a place to go, so they will be grateful that you have made that choice for them. My next tip in trying to avoid temptation or trying to resist a temptation would be to solicit the help of others. If you ask someone else to help you stick to your plan, then they are more likely to feel responsible for your success. For example, you might tell them what you're planning to eat or not to eat, so that they can watch out for those things for you. And if you're planning to go to bed earlier, like in that example when I said about your partner suggesting that you watch a movie at 9 p.m. when you're planning to be in bed at 10 p.m., you can tell them that you are planning to go to bed at 10 p.m. so you want to start winding down at 9 p.m. You might want to start watching the movie an hour earlier than that, and then set an alarm, for example, for 9 p.m. that you are going to stop watching and start winding down for the day. That way you're not putting your friends and family in an awkward position, but kind of recruiting them to be your assistants in this matter. Another reason why you might be failing is that you are making too many changes too fast. Well, if you're trying to switch 180 degrees from the way you used to live your life, of course, it's going to present a lot of challenges. As you know, our willpower is actually limited, and anytime you need to think and remember and use your willpower to do something you have not done before, you are using up that valuable energy, and eventually that energy goes down, and then you have no more willpower left. For this reason, we create habits so that we don't have to use the willpower every time we want to do something. And it's better to add up one habit on top of another and build slowly than to change multiple habits all at once, so that you do not exhaust yourself. If you are trying to curb sugar addiction in particularly, then I recommend an article by Healthy Home Economist, which I put in the description down below. She talks about quitting sugar in a step-by-step way. Another reason why you might be failing when trying to keep a healthy habit is because you are trying to be perfect. Don't wait until you get that perfect gym wear or find a perfect workout. Don't wait until you get that new bullet blender or write a perfect meal plan. The most important goal is to start. So for me, for example, when I was trying to get off sugar, I introduced a habit of adding a green vegetable at every meal. So if I would eat more nutritious foods, then eventually I would crave less unhealthy foods. It creates a sort of a circle. When you eat healthily, then you are less likely to eat unhealthy because you don't want to ruin the progress that you have already done. Plus, when you are nourished, then your body is not craving unhealthy foods as much because you've got enough nutrition from the food that you are eating. You don't need to eat mindlessly. And another example of perfection being the enemy of done is when I wanted to introduce more exercise into my life. I started at level 0. I was not exercising at all. And I have started a habit tracker. I had this year-long tracker, and I was marking it every time I would do an exercise. And I would mark even if I had done 15 minutes. It didn't matter. And by the end of the year, I haven't done that much. 75 workouts that I have marked. I didn't start marking them from the very beginning, and some of them I have clearly missed, but that was way more than the 0 that I have started with. 75 workouts versus 0 workouts. The next year it was twice that amount. When I shared this with my friend, it was quite relevant to her because she was always trying to find the perfect workout. She wouldn't consider it to be a workout if she wouldn't be sweating. And I said that I even started by working out in my loungewear because I just don't like changing. So For me, I needed to start in my loungewear. I needed to start without any equipment, just basically started moving my body. And that was enough to trigger the habit. In a way, for me, habit that I was forming is the habit of showing up. I didn't even have any equipment. I started buying kettlebells only as I built a habit. I said to myself, I'm not going to get any gym membership, because if there would be even the slightest friction, I would not do it. So it had to be from home, it had to be from my room. And then eventually I started adding kettlebells and working out with them. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Another reason you might be failing in your healthy lifestyle routine is that you are focusing on negative habits rather than the positive ones. So instead of saying to yourself, eat less junk or sugar or whatnot, it is better to say, I would like to add one vegetable to my meals every single meal. That would be a better goal than trying to always restrict yourself. I think especially as a rebel, it's better to have positive type of goals than negative ones. But I think it applies to everyone. So maybe drink 2 cups of water between meals rather than drink less soda. Try to push out the bad habits with the healthy ones. Another reason why you might be failing in a healthy lifestyle is that you are not prepared. We've touched upon the temptation and we've touched upon the trying to resist it, but also what about your alternatives? Have you got the foods that you should be eating in the house instead of the foods you shouldn't be eating? A good new habit to form would be maybe to do a meal prep on Sundays. When you have enough energy, maybe to batch cook tofu and cook some rice and cut up some vegetables, so that you have that prep to give you a head start at the beginning of the week. You can check my video on 12 gluten-free, sugar-free and vegan snacks that you can have, and I'm planning to post more of these in the future. Another tip is to always cook extra when making a meal so that you can have a meal tomorrow which is already sorted, or you can freeze your extra meals and have them later on. That way you are saving yourself a lot of time. When you are shopping, put a hat of an investigator and find what would be the healthiest lunch that you could have if you are in a time crunch. Whenever you go maybe to corner shop whilst you are working in the office, or whenever you have run out of food, you can always get something that is the healthiest that you can get from the store quickly. And when you are having a dinner or a brunch with your friends, opt for a savory option as a safe bet. And to make any habit stick, it's better to pair it with something that you already enjoy doing. For example, if you are exercising or stretching, you can watch your favorite YouTube channel or listen to your favorite podcast. Or if you are just starting on healthy eating journey, then you might have a big salad with something maybe less healthy, maybe some kind of a processed chicken bites, let's say, but that would make this meal more exciting for you, and that you are more likely to eat that big bowl of salad. And generally try to make your food exciting. I have a great food blog recommendation for you from Rainbow Plant Life. She has amazing recipes. She is my favorite food blogger, and I highly recommend that you check her out if you want to add more flavor and add more excitement and oomph to your dishes. In the beginning, when you are transitioning to a healthy lifestyle, I recommend that you do not restrict the amount of food that you're eating. You don't want to feel restricted when you are moving to a healthy lifestyle. So I don't recommend that you limit your portion sizes or count your calories, which is not helpful at all. So eat until you are full and satisfied. And now to that gamify tip that I gave in the beginning for rebels. So how to do a healthy prize draw, but there's no prize. It's just a healthy draw You can write down different small tasks that you can do that are health related. Might be do 5 push-ups, or when you're next in the store, get a veg that you've never tried before, find a recipe for it and prepare it. And basically for each task, you want a separate piece of paper. You write that task, you fold it, and you put it in a jar and you mix them up. So you never know which one you're gonna pull out that day when you want to challenge yourself. You don't have to do them if you don't want to, but it's just a fun way to add more healthy habits to your life. Or you can write down, watch somebody do a 30-day sugar-free challenge. When you are switching to a healthier lifestyle, allow yourself to do things you have never done or never tried before. Try to think outside of the box. It's not all about restrictions. It's about the abundance within the food choices or within the lifestyle choices that you are given. It might be thinking outside of the box in terms of exercise. Exercise is not only about walking, jogging, heavy lifting. It can be bouldering, climbing, hiking. It can be dancing, things like that. There's so many different types of sports that we don't even know about. The next recommendation that I have for you is to buy a calendar that would be specifically for your personal wins. And every time you have achieved your goal, write down a win or a victory on that day of the calendar, so that you give yourself some credit and celebrate when you have made this achievement, so that when you see your streak, you are more likely to continue. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.